Okay, great. So what we're going to cover today is going through the flow editor and really focusing on maps as sort of the primary component for today. So we're going to be working with maps, working with, keeping dots off the map, and all sorts of things like that. So we will be using a data set here, and I'll bring it up. So this is the 2020 presidential election data. Now, in this data set, we have the states, the county, the number of votes that were cast, and then the winning party, whether it was Democrat or Republican. And then we actually assigned a color here, but I'll show you multiple ways to do that. And then the last thing is actually this latitude and longitude, which were made by looking up the county and state combination to get that information. So that's what this data set is. And I'll put a link to that so that everyone here can also use that same data. But to build this, what we'll first do is create a swarm, and we will add in this data set. So we'll upload this data set as a CSV file.
I'm going to interrupt. So just to be clear, what Michael's going to do is he's going to walk through it quickly, and then we will go in our breakout groups, be able to build it ourselves. So if you want to play along and do your own while he's working, you're certainly welcome to, of course, but it's a little easier to like pay attention, and he's just going to kind of fly through it, and then we'll.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Jason. Yeah, I'm going to basically fly through this in terms of working with the map, and then we'll jump into our breakout rooms, and we can dive a level deeper and get more into what you guys are working on. Okay, so on this view, let's go ahead and I'm going to add a step here. And on this step, I'm going to add a map. So by default, when it creates a map, it creates a sphere that is 1/2 meter in diameter or 1/4 meter in radius. Now, I typically update this just a bit because I like the little things a little bigger, but sort of personal preferences here. So then let's actually start to put these dots on the map. And so we can do that by selecting map from coordinates, where we will select map 1, tell it where the latitude and tell it where the longitude are. And now we are able to see this content placed on the map. Now, a few things that we're going to adjust for this. One is the distance from map, typically is offset. We're actually going to set that to 0, as well as the stacked height. So now that when I look at the side, it's actually directly on the map itself.
Hate to interrupt again, but just tell them what you're doing to navigate around the space with the right click, et cetera.
Oh, sure. So maybe let me actually take a pause here, and let's actually all go into one that actually shows the final product, or the final thing that we're building today. And that way we can just have a shared mental model for how this is going to work. So I'm going to click Meet, create a room, and then if anyone would like to join me live here, you're welcome to join the link by using the link in the chat window, or if you'd like to use your phone, feel free to jump on. But you guys had seen a demo similar to this, I think in our first day, where we sort of give you a bit more of the landscape. But let me start to go through. Let me refresh my page real quick. All right, cool. So I see everybody here.
Remember to teach them about right click.
So the thing I want to teach you here in terms of locomotion or movement. So your left click is clicking and dragging to move left, right, up, down, to basically move around the scene by moving around a center point. And you use your right click to strafe left, right, up, down, and that moves the center point. So you can move your physical body through space by using the strafe, and then the right click will rotate the scene as you rotate around. So you'll start to get used to it, but that's essentially what we're doing. And what you're looking at here is exactly what we're going to try to build together. It's building this globe that basically shows the results of the 2020 election based on whoever won each county, and then adjusting the size of each bar based on the number of votes that were cast. And then we can apply a different filter to look at the colors, where it's less binary and a bit more in between in terms of The color, the ratio between Democrats and Republicans. So any questions around moving around the scene or what we're going to try to build today? And yeah, so I'll pause there. Okay. So I do think that, maps in particular, hopefully what you're seeing here, you can extrapolate out towards any other type of map. It's like you're putting dots on the map to indicate some sort of magnitude, where typically it's only represented by dot sizes typically, or a chloropleth, where you use color to indicate bin sizes. And so I do think there's a lot of value to actually having magnitude lines coming off of a map, where it's more granular and more dramatic in terms of the presentation of it. And we can go through some other examples that we've been experimenting with as well. But let me actually get back now to the lesson. So I'm going to close this room, and to close it, I'm going to open up the sidebar where I can see everyone's name. Then I'm going to click on End Meeting, which will end this session, and everyone's kicked out. So let me get back into this flow. So we're back in the editor where we're constructing this. Now, there are some small details in the other one that I'm not going to try to replicate fully, such as like the background of the map. To actually have that be 0 will make it completely see-through, things like that. But let's go ahead and start to fill this in. So one of the first things we're going to want to do is set the color of these dots based on who the winning party was. And so we can do that by adding in a color scheme that looks at the party of which party won. So it's one or the other. Now, by default, it's selecting this color scheme, but because this is an election one, we want to essentially create a red and a blue color scheme to follow. And so to do that, we're going to go to the Environment tab, where we can then create a custom color, and we'll name it. And then we basically click twice to create 2 colors. Now we could keep creating more, but basically we want to set this to blue, and we want to set the second one to red. And it's a little bit of, and it's based on the order in which it shows up, that category shows up in the spreadsheet. So that's the logic that it follows. So we're still working on the one-to-one relationship that you can set up. But for now, you can basically use that custom scheme, and I got it right this time. But if I had gotten it wrong, I could basically switch the order of these and correct the color scheme that way. So now that we've applied some color, let's actually change the size of these dots. Or actually, no, let's leave it all, we'll leave them all small for now. But let's go ahead and add another step. Or no, let's actually build some interactions, because if we build interactions, it will follow through to the next step. So first thing I'm going to do is add an on rollover pop-up. So this is as I scan my mouse over the map, what information can I pull back? And let's go ahead and just pull back the county and the winning party. And so I'm going to take out the preface county by deleting that. And so then the example just showed the, like that. So now if I click OK, now you'll see as I roll over, we're seeing this additional information pop up. Now, there's more we can do, similar to what we went through last time, where we can add some on select pop-ups. And I'm actually going to use overlay text for this, where we're going to say the county, and then we're also going to say percentage of votes, and we're going to make this a percentage by changing it to %. And so now we see 51%. And last thing would be the number of votes cast, where this we want to round so that we can fit it all in. And you'll notice here that we can basically tell it where to place it. And this is going to show up essentially as a 2D pop-up. So when I click it, you'll see up here, we can see the pop-up. And there's a small little bug with this X blocking up some of the contents, but anyways,
it will be fixed in tonight's push.
Yeah, it's coming soon. Now, one last thing to show, just because this is a little bit show-offy-ish, but I think it's pretty awesome, is that within OnSelect, you can actually make these fields editable. So you can actually change content on the fly if you do that. And so by doing so, if I were to now re-click on a dot, you'll see that I can actually update this value completely. So if I make it 10,000, Now it's showing up as 10K. So you can actually make changes on the fly. And where this is going to be relevant is when I start to show the magnitudes. So let me go ahead and add another step here. And on this step, let's go ahead and start to add those magnitudes in. So now on the offset column, we're going to look at the number of votes that were cast. And we're going to let it go out from the edge of the map another quarter of a meter. So all these numbers are in meters, which will matter if you're in augmented reality. Now let's add in connections by just doing a 2-axis or map. I'm going to make these just a hair thinner so that they don't block each other. But this way we see now that first view where we can see the magnitudes of these bars coming out of the country. Now, to that other point I made of being able to change values, you'll see it here. Like if I knock off, or if I make this number much smaller, you'll see how that drops down. So now it's super low here at 1,000. So this idea that you can start to actually make updates and explore content in a multitude of ways, I think is, yeah, very interesting and powerful. Now you're seeing this dot take over. So let me take that out. Okay, cool. So from here, we're just going to do one last view. So on this last view, what we're going to do is actually change the colors so that it is not a color scheme, but instead a gradient. And the reason we're going to make it a gradient is that we want to look at how Democrat or how Republican that county wins. And so to do that, we can essentially look at the percentage Democrat. So it's just 1 minus the percentage Republican, or we could have done the opposite to say what percentage Democrat. And to do this, we're just basically going to say, or set it to blue and red. And I got these backwards, so I need to go red to blue. And you can be more exact with these. I'm sort of being a little general here. But now we are able to see this gradient as opposed to such a binary blue versus red, which I think is a better representation of what's going on at least in the US. So with that, we've now essentially recreated this flow. And so we can click share and enable this public link. And now this is live on the web and we can all jump into a meeting to go through it. So any questions about this or comments from what you've seen so far?
When you create things, they're automatically private, right?
Yes, correct. By default, nothing is shared. And so the only way to access this flow is if you share it directly with someone. And if you share it with their email, they'll need to basically register in here to get into the platform. And you can give them different permissions, whether they have edit access, delete access. And then for our organizations, we have the ability to share it with a whole org. So if you're part of a larger company, that you can share it with anyone in the platform, not just a select few people. And then clicking this enable public link does exactly what it intends, that this is now public. When you click that button, that anyone can use that link to basically access that flow.
I'll add that there's no searchability. So it's like it's an unlisted YouTube or something like that. No one will be able to search on that link or search on your title or anything and find your flow. We're not a publishing platform at this point.
And then you can also click this get embed code, and this will actually give you the embed code to then put this on your own websites just as an embedded flow, as opposed to needing a separate site for it. So yeah, that's it. And I love maps. I think maps are so powerful because it really is one of the first things that everyone goes to in the spatial community for data viz. It's like seeing maps in their true form and then also overlaying data on top of it is, I think a very easy thing to start to introduce to people. And I know I've shown you this way too many times, but I do think that showing there are some new unique things that we're starting to experiment with maps, where instead of using this axis coming off of the map as a magnitude, we could instead use that as time. And by using time as this dimension coming off, we can then use the dot size for the magnitudes. And so here we're just applying a threshold and looking at COVID in the US and only showing where it's above like a 50 cases per 10,000 or 100,000 in that day. And so it just paints a different picture, and one that actually is pretty interesting to look at, where you're combining time series data and geospatial data. So I show you that just because I'm still really into it. And I think there's more to come with maps, but for sure. So any other thoughts, questions, or other comments? Otherwise, we'll jump into some breakout rooms.
One question. So how do you create multi-swarms?
How do I create what? Sorry?
Multi-swarm. So I know you have that one swarm, right? What if I wanted like another one, right? So
sure.
kind of have this kind of dashboard kind of like set up.
Yeah. So to do that, you click the plus button here for plus swarm.
Sure again.
Oh, thanks. So to do that, you click the plus button right down here for plus swarm. I'll try to make that a little bigger. So this little button for swarm. So by clicking that, it will create a new object. So now I see swarm 2 here that doesn't have a data source associated with it. I could reassociate it with that data source, or I could add in, something else. I don't know if I have anything interesting, but yeah, then we could do something else like on top of it. Like we could say state, the height would be.
And there's no like sequencing or layering of like the timeline, right?
The only sequencing is just the order in which it shows up in the, excuse me. Yeah, so this is just each step. So the timeline is showing each step of a presentation, or like each slide, so to say, as well as you're defining the duration between those steps. And I don't know if that answers your question. I'm not sure if I fully understood what you were asking.
So I'm saying, now that you're putting kind of 2 swarms on top of one another, right? I'm old school, kind of like Photoshop to a certain extent, right? I kind of see it as like a layer, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. So it's a little different where the layers are actually, because it's a 3-dimensional space, the layers are actually in 3D. So there is no like top or bottom. It's just, is it physically above it or below it? So you're sort of manually doing it, I guess, in that sense. So as an example of that, for this example, maybe what I do is I move the graph up 1 meter, because that will be right at the top of the map. And so now I'm not layering them. I'm actually showing both at the same time. And I'm going to rotate this 180 degrees around so that it's now facing the same direction as where this map is looking. And let's just apply something to the winner. No, it's party.
I got you.
Custom. So yeah, that's basically how you start to go through it. And obviously this is not necessarily super meaningful, but yeah, that's
I get the concept.
Yeah, but great question. Yeah, good question. Okay, that's kind of cool. How Democrat or how Republican by state. Okay, kind of cool. Okay.
But, if you get Michael started on discovering a new way to look at the data, he'll get lost in interesting rabbit holes.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, cool. So any other questions or anything else to describe as a large group here? Okay. So I'm going to create the breakout rooms. So Bill and Sierra are unfortunately unable to be here today. This is the one day they're not able to be here, but so basically it's just going to be Jason and I. So let's just see how this shuffles out. And then for everyone else, we'll basically switch you up to make sure that our groups are even here. So create these rooms.
I got Pandas have 100% attendance. Yay.
Woo.
That's why we're going to win.
Oh. Okay, we'll see. All right, rooms are open. So if you can go to.
So how do people know which to join if they're?
If you don't know which to join, or basically if you were with Bill or Jason last time, or you weren't in a room, just stick around. I'll stay on here and get people to the right room. I'll usher people around. Well, so I'm going to move both you guys over here to the variants or the variance group.
Sounds good.
All right.
Them now.
Oh, it cut off for you right there.
How
was
did
that?
he
Oh, I was